Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. Tonight we'll be discussing a rather new discovery that I've made. It has to do with cluster B traits that are being employed in this modern day and age for social engineering by our lovely powers that shouldn't be, whoever that may be. The subject is paid shills. You've probably heard the word shill here and there. Many of us already know propaganda being synthesized by our own government may legally be distributed to us. The history is in 1948 there was a war and the people found out that the government was lying to them about this and about that, and they had enough, so they passed this Smith-Munt Modernization Act, which was designed to prevent such things from happening. That's been in effect since then until Obama chose to repeal it and release that restriction, and then we had Sandy Hoax right afterwards. The deal is, now that we know this stuff is legal and nobody told us anything about it, nobody said, oh, by the way, for your protection, we're going to make it legal to lie to you. None of that was said. It was just done and done. So you have to use your brain and think, well, why would anybody waste the time to even do such a thing? What purpose could that possibly serve? Well, we know the purpose of propaganda is to get people to change their opinions in order to make specific decisions. And this sounds so cluster B, just like the creature that you met, who is a monster, rotten, dirty, thief, murderer, immoral person, but you've got something they want, so they morph into the perfect person for you. And they, in effect, use propaganda against you to try to steer your decisions to involve including this person in your life. Now that we know it's legal, we can watch television, we can watch the news and look at the coverage of the worst mass killing in the USA or something like that. When I hear such claims, I many times will look very carefully at what's being shown. What I've noticed in several what you could call false flag operations, many inconsistencies, and certain false flag events or downright hoaxes are so full of Swiss cheese holes in their narrative that it's obvious that something ain't right. You don't necessarily have to say the whole thing is phony, but at the very least you can say what they've told us is not accurate because of logical inconsistencies. There's a new phenomenon out there. Now that the propaganda is legal, well, there's got to be somebody out there to enforce it. So what happens that I've seen on particular YouTube videos, we'll pick one particular event that's full of Swiss cheese holes and just say that I'd watch a documentary about the event, pointing out the official story versus the witness accounts versus the public records versus the information elsewhere, and it's very easy to see that something ain't right. People will comment on such boards. Now we have to switch our mind back to, why have these things even occurred? Propaganda. Our own government wants to influence us to make decisions in their best interests. And a key point here is, usually we would not make such decisions if we knew the facts. So it's very psychopathic. Like with your cluster B monster, it doesn't want you to know that it's a secret hooker on the side. It doesn't want you to know it has another spouse in another state. It doesn't want you to know all these secrets, so it pretends to be exactly what you want. So the people who design these things need reinforcement, because the news stories come out and people post them online. Well, a lot of times what happens is that people watch it and they see the Swiss cheese holes and the flaws in the storyline, and they will comment. And this is the way the social engineers can monitor how good or how bad they're doing by gaining feedback via the comments. Well, let's say there's one particular video about a particular event that's clearly fake, and then people start saying to the regular newscast, this was so fake, this is ridiculous. Well, these paid shills scour the internet. They scour through the videos to locate such comments. And what are they there for? Well, they know that there are people out there who turn on the TV, they watch the news, they see the story, and snap, it's fact, and that's it. Or they view a headline that says 10 children killed at this place by this person, and they commit that as fact, and that's it. So if anybody asks them, they'll say, oh yes, 10 kids were killed there. That's not really doing much research, but in the olden days, we never needed to. We simply turned the news on, and whatever they said we assumed was true, and there was no need to question it. times have changed. When these creatures troll on these pages, if it's an event that's obviously phony and has a lot of flaws, there are going to be a lot of comments. What you will typically see is where the cluster B mentality comes in. You will post your comment based on what they're showing and saying and based on what you know from elsewhere, from maybe another network or from another piece of information, and you'll just flat out say this is fake. Well, these people zoom in, and many of them have what are called sock puppets, which sounds disgusting, but they exist. They've got like maybe 5 different screen names that they'll use, and many times they'll go onto the very same page. They'll try to give the illusion that there are several people out there who die hard believe the official story. The powers that shouldn't be know that there are people out there who are waking up to this crap. They also know that there are many people who might be on the fence. These shills are employed to target those individuals. So let's say you are a believer in the mainstream media. Every story that comes out is true and you believe it all to your heart. And then your brother comes along and says, that story ain't true. I happen to know somebody who was there and they said that A, B, C, and D. Well, that's going to cause cognitive dissonance for the average person. And many people choose to not go down that road. So they might say, oh, you're foolish, you're stupid. You and your conspiracy theories. But maybe something happens down the road to this person and they notice something or they think about something and say, wait, that doesn't really make sense. And then they might decide to look into it further. Well, there are a lot of those people out there, and these shills know it. So maybe you're one of them who's on the fence, and you think, well, maybe this could be fake because I did notice this that doesn't fit with the story. Well, these shills are there for you. So you're questioning, but they're going to go in and say, whoever is saying the story is not true is a fool. They are going to react to them, and their reactions are designed for you to see them and for you to jump right back into dreamland where you believe every word out of your TV. Because they know that if someone goes on there and watches the news coverage and then reads the comments and thinks independently, they might just come to that same conclusion. So these shills are there to say things like, you have no evidence of a hoax. How dare you say such a thing with these poor victims who were murdered, and you have the nerve to be so heartless as to say this is fake or whatever they say. Well, that would be right up your alley if you're one of those on the fence people, because you're still wanting to lean towards believing it, but then you're also seeing additional information that makes it question, and it might be more comfortable for you to read these comments and say, oh, I'm glad I was mistaken. See, that person there just said it was real. They lived there and they saw it. Oh, case closed. Brother, you're stupid. And that keeps the believers. I've examined such people because if I'm going to make a claim that something's phony, I'm not just going to say it because I heard somebody else say it. I typically will study it. I will look at the mainstream version. I'll look at the mainstream version plus comments by a YouTube creator. I will look elsewhere in other publications and look at history with such events and look at it all together and form an opinion. And if I see enough inconsistencies to at least know the story's not what they're telling us it is, then I will feel free to type a comment. Well, I've been faced with some of these creatures, and they'll say the usual, your story's wrong, this story was true, I know someone, my parakeet sister's brother happens to know someone who died there in that school, and it's very shallow, very superficial. It's basically just saying, fancy or not fancy, you're wrong. So I'll come back and say, oh really? You're telling me this is real? Well, what about, and I'll list some specific detail that would be questionable to anybody who studied it, thinking that's going to show them, assuming they're a real person. Now, a real person might listen to what you say and look into it and say, oh, my mistake. That's a good point. Do you get that with your cluster B monster? No. You don't get it with these people either. What they do when you present a very logical argument of why you've said what you've said, their reaction tends to be personal attacks. Well, you're just a tinfoil hat fool in your parents' basement. You are so dumb, blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing intelligent, nothing to counter your discussion. Just like the narcissist creature cannot debate with you in a rational manner. If you found something they did wrong that they swore they'd never do, and you point it out and say, look, this is wrong, you won't get any breakdown or any type of severe, honest apology. You'll get some kind of, oh, well, you're too critical. Oh, you're just making things, oh, what about when you did? And it's the same type of thing where they're not giving you anything to support their view. And they'll insult you, which is a personal attack, which indicates they don't have anything to fight you with because you're probably right. but they're there to try to steer people away. It's a sick fact that these things exist, but I've come into contact with quite a few of them, and you'll notice the same names on every single video that's pointing out the fakery, and even the real ones that aren't. And you start to memorize them, thinking, wow, you're on every single video about this, and you start to wonder, if you really believe this is so true and real, why do you spend your whole day going to every single video about this subject and saying the same type of crap you're saying to me to everybody else? That's very strange. Like if let's say there was a horrendous tragedy of some kind of murder of a bunch of people and you were there to see it, well, if I was that person and I saw a horrific thing and I knew it was real, I wouldn't be looking online to find people that say it isn't real just so I can go in there and bully them all day and say how horrible they are for daring to suggest this is not real, because I would know it was real. There'd be no reason for that. But the very fact these creatures exist speaks for itself. Just like your cluster B creature who continuously lies about what it's done and covers up what it's done, that indicates there's something wrong. And when you try to have that conversation, once again, you'll be shut down. So look out for these things. If you notice another mass media event that's covered on every station but doesn't seem to make sense, or the supposed witnesses or victims who had someone murdered is on there pretending to cry but no tears are coming out, that's suspect. And if you were to go on that video and say, that mother didn't lose her children, she was laughing, and when she was trying to cry, there were no tears, you'll be likely to get something back like, everyone grieves differently. Which is retarded, because there was one such event where it seemed every single parent who lost their child was laughing to the camera, behaving inappropriately. And I heard that same statement, everybody grieves differently. Yeah, well, in this case, I'd say everybody's grieving the same, and it's inappropriate. It's laughter. If you lost your child, you would be sad. I know, I've lost 2 dogs, and that is a very sad thing, and I would never go on TV laughing about it. I would be away from TV in my own home in solitude, cherishing my moments. I wouldn't be rushing out to the television. But everyone's different, yes, of course. But still, I know what real grief looks like, and that ain't it. So be careful what you believe, especially if it comes out of your television or any version of mainstream media.
Ban all assault rifles.
Ban all guns with high capacity magazines, whatever they are.
Ban all full semi-automatic weapons.
Ban all those automatic weapons that are so easy to buy at Walmart. I'm the Narcopath, and I'm practicing. So I'm gonna go to the March for Our Lives. Well, I know it already happened, but I'm going to the next one. I'm anticipating there's gonna be another one. There's gonna be another fake shooting I designed.
Now, I've tried to become knowledgeable about guns, and those things I just said don't exist, or are simply parroting counterfeit news network.
I'm a narcopath, so I'm legally not allowed to own an assault rifle or any kind of gun, but guess what? Do you think that stopped me from owning 10 of them? As if any law they pass is going to have any effect on me. If anything, is going to give me more guns. I don't follow the law. If I'm going to go and murder some people, you think I'm going to care about the fact that, it's illegal for me to buy this particular weapon to use to murder people? I guess I better cancel. I don't think so. Who comes up with these ideas? They're retarded. What is an assault rifle anyway? And they're talking about the AR-15 because it's cosmetically different than a regular rifle. It looks like a military grade. Well, who cares what it looks like? I look like a sex bot from heaven. Does that make a difference? Did that make a difference when we dated? When you found out that I lied to you and I had someone else? Did that keep us together forever? I don't think so. The truth is, I got a hefty paycheck from Lord Soros. All I had to do was parrot off those nonsensical lines to whoever would listen, preferably with a camera, so I could spread the word about how retarded I am about guns. Like half the people at this protest, they don't have a clue what they're protesting. I saw several of them being interviewed, and they didn't even know what an assault rifle was. I thought, I'll show you what an assault rifle is, honey. And I was ready to let them have it, but I maintained my composure. But I realized these people are dumb. I can be one of them. I did an audition, and I got the job. So next time you see one of these events on television, be looking for me. I'll be on there. Telling you like it is. Ah!
as our relationship goes, I know I always told you that you were the only one I wanted, which didn't explain those nights I disappeared for several hours during the football game and
the hottest football player on the team was missing for a few hours too. That didn't need to concern you. There are certain things I believe you don't need to be aware of. You don't need to know what I'm doing, despite what I've told you. Who cares if I told you it was you and me forever? If I got pregnant by somebody else, that's none of your business. I do what I want. But I had strict rules for you, which means you're not even allowed to look at another hot chick like I am. But I'm allowed to look at and touch and play with whomever I want as long as you don't see it. Those are my rules. You couldn't live with it, so you didn't get to have me. You're lost, honey. You shouldn't be so particular.